It's time to get you caught up with all things sports.
Yes! 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 Yes!
On the throw-in.
One thing is certain. None of this is possible without you, the listeners.
From baseball, football, wrestling, and more, covering local Cincinnati sports stories, news, and highlights.
Why is he always calling me meat?
With your host, Justin Trento.
When it's all said and done, we're going to look back and remember this is what started it all.
Available on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
Let's play the ball! Let's play the ball! Yeah!
You know, we kick off the evening here talking, paying respect and remembrance of 1/4 or 1/5 of the Four Horsemen, as we recognize Ole Anderson, who passed away earlier today. Something that just came on the news source that I discovered. And, you know, I didn't grow up with the Four Horsemen, but I was, you know, when you think of wrestling, you think of factions, and, you know, you grow up in the 2000s. I think everyone's fair enough to say that they've heard of the Four Horsemen. And Ole Anderson is not is not one that's really, when you think of the Four Horsemen, you know, you immediately jump to names like Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. But, you know, you talk about a time period where it was ruthless, it was unpronounced, just nasty to watch. And, you know, the Four Horsemen has established themselves, and everybody, you know, played a very, very important role into their success. I mean, think about, you know, you talk about fractions, successful fractions today. You know, you throw in guys like, you know, like, for example, the Bloodline, for example. Everybody has played an important part for the Bloodline to be successful. It's not just Jimmy. It's not just Jay. It's not just Solo Sikoa. Even Paul Heyman's playing a very, very important role to the success of the Bloodline. Same thing for the Four Horsemen. You know, Steve, you know, I actually, when I found this out, was actually about an hour or two, a little less than 2 hours ago. Steve, you know, I messaged Steve Barber over there at Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast, and he messaged me. I was like, you know, he was like, if you want to see how much of a bastard Ole could be in the ring, go watch the steel cage match he had with Arn against the Rock and Roll Express at Starrcade 86. I told him I had to go check it out. I don't know every details about Ole Anderson. I don't, you know, I just know, you know, enough, you know, and there are guys that make a huge splash in the industry, the professional wrestling industry. You know, you got the Ric Flairs, the Hulk Hogans, the Stings, the Triple H, the Undertakers of the world. But then there's younger, smaller guys that maybe are not as valued or as important, at least so to seem, right? They don't are not names that you'd go put on your Mount Rushmore, but they are, but they kind of are the glue pieces to to professional wrestling. R-Truth is not no top 5 superstar of any wrestling company, but his hard work, his dedication, his time in the ring, his time he's putting into his character is important. And Ole Anderson is one of those guys. He's not a Von Erich, but he's made a name for himself and he's left his stamp in professional wrestling. It's afternoons, Monday, February 26, 2024. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone enjoyed a solid weekend. Seems to me, from my understanding, we are kind of out of the winter stages, officially in that spring. Although we'll get some rain and thunderstorm shatters across our area throughout the next couple of weeks, on and off. It seems like, it's going to be up there in the 50s and 60s. Great to get out, take the kids to the park, toss the ball around, and all that fun stuff. Stay warm. To this afternoon, believe it or not, I was ready to turn on the AC. And I'm just one of those guys that I need to be chilled. I need to have a fan on, especially as the weather creeps up and gets warmer out. I need to get up earlier. And we live on the 3rd floor. We don't necessarily have the greatest view. We're kind of in the back, but otherwise, it gets warm, especially in the evening times. So we have the windows open. I was actually out with the wife the other day. We took our black Nissan out to go grocery shopping, and man, boy, it was nice and toasty in there. Had to take out the sun visor for the first time. So, but it's nice to, get some weather season. It's spring training. You got Cactus League, you got Grapefruit League going on. And if and those weathers are pretty nice. They're not as frigid, and so it's nice to feel that same way. But man, I had a really nice weekend, really got a chance to relax with the wife. Watch some movies. We got a chance to watch Elvis for the first time, which was a tough movie to watch, to me at least. But otherwise, I got up early. Saturday was a big day. Got up early. I actually missed the first hour of Elimination Chamber. For those who haven't watched it, was Elimination Chamber at Perth, Australia. It was actually aired on Peacock back on Saturday at what was it? It was 5 o'clock. It was like a 4 o'clock kickoff, 5 o'clock show. I woke up around 6, turned it on, turned it to the end of the Judgment Day, taking on the new Catch Republic tag team match. Finished watching the program and got my day started. And the one thing that I was just stumbling across when I was watching Elimination Chamber, and this isn't the first time where a pay-per-view has been in a different country and had a different start time than normal. In the States, we have to be lucky. I think we have to be thankful because professional wrestling, for the most part, caters to the Eastern Coast timeframes. What I mean by that is that you get, when you watch Raw, okay, if you live out here on the East Coast, you watch Raw, you watch SmackDown, you watch NXT. Majority of the time, you watch a pay-per-view. If it's in the States, they cater to your typical, 8 o'clock start time, maybe 7 o'clock at occasions, but it's the start time that you like. And I think that goes for almost any sport, correct? If it's held in the States, they cater to your start time. So, West Coast will get 3 hours in advance. So their, events start at 5, 6, maybe, 5 or 4. But you think about us, I was like thinking, I was like, why are we complaining? And I mean, I still hear people today complain, man, the Elimination Chamber is in a different country, and the Elimination Chamber has to be so ungodly early in the morning. If you're out there on the West Coast, you got to wake up at 2:00 in the morning to watch Elimination Chamber. And I was just like, why complain? You think about this for a moment. How many, if you're in China, if you're in Korea, you're in, you're in Britain, don't you have to adjust to our time? Just think, I was just thinking about this, because it was when it started at 5:00 here, it was like what? I don't know exactly what time. I want to say it was like 7:00 in Australia in the afternoon. And I'm like, well, just imagine if you're a WWE or if you're a wrestling fan in general, having to wait to watch that product until that evening, or until, you got to wake up on a weekly basis to watch Raw at 2:00 in the morning. I find that absurd to think about, that people accommodate their life schedules around United States time majority of the time. But then when WWE goes out to a different country, okay, they even take courteous factors to tape SmackDown beforehand. But, they go have you're asking for them to not change their time frame so that you're not having a live show at 2:00 in the morning live. There, you can have it in the evening where it's, daylight and how typical events go. But then you're asking us in the United States to sit back and have to change our time frame. And I actually enjoyed it. You don't get to see it that often. So I actually am very thrilled. I'm very happy to see it. And, I'm looking to see more of that. I think, as the weekends roll by, guess what? You get to record it, DVR it, watch it later. Some people will watch it. I mean, I know there's a difference between watching it live and watching on a recording, but hell with it. I mean, I remember when every pay-per-view were $60 a pop, and my family was one of those families who could only afford WrestleMania, maybe SummerSlam, maybe the Royal Rumble too, depending if we're going to get a good tax return. But no, I watched good 2/3 of the Elimination Chamber. We're going to talk about that a lot in hour number 1. So I'm going to let you guys know right now, if you guys have not watched Elimination Chamber, hit this pause button, watch it, come back, listen to the program, because it's a spoil alert a lot here. I also got to remember that, listen, these stadiums aren't that big. Compared to arenas, this isn't, GEHA Stadium in Arrowhead, at Arrowhead or Kansas City. This isn't Lincoln, this isn't in Seattle. This is in a different country. This, they had for over 50,000 people in Australia. I think that's a really good number. I mean, for a crowd, it looked pretty crowded. It looked like the fans were hyped of it. And I think the layout of the match card was pretty successful. You kicked off, you had the pre-show with the Kubaki Warriors defeating and defending their, successfully defending their tag team titles against Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell. You kicked off the program with Becky Lynch winning the Women's Elimination Chamber. So you had that story to tell throughout the night. You saw the undisputed WWE tag team titles on the line. Judgment Day was successful all the way around the horn on Saturday, defeating the New Catch Republic. Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins had a segment on the Grayson Waller Effect. We'll talk in our upcoming segment here. Then you had the Men's Elimination Chamber, where Drew McIntyre wins to challenge Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania. And then the main event, WWE Women's World Championship, Rhea Ripley defeating successfully Nia Jax to retain her title. And, I want to apologize ahead of time here because, you know, I don't, it's not a feminist thing. It's not a masculine thing. I just, I really just didn't pay much attention to what this match meant for Rhea Ripley in her in her hometown, you know, defending her title. You also got Grayson Waller, who obviously had to be a part of that show, had the Grayson Waller effect, and we'll talk a little bit about in the second segment of about this. But the moment the spotlight was on Rhea Ripley, and I personally did not see nor feel that attention on her, and I mean, this is me overlooking it. So on my end, she deserves a lot more credit to in this moment of spotlight. Now, I think it was more so because she already had the championship. When you look at facing someone like Nia Jax, I just, no disrespect to Nia Jax, I'm finding it off for her to kind of be just out there involved and into this championship reign, and where does she fit in? And as we go through the program, I think there's a point in our number one I'm going to make about that, but I just didn't I just didn't really appreciate a lot much as I should have watching it live, what it meant for Rhea Ripley. So I personally apologize. But I was thinking about this today. It reminds me, I was like, you know what? Sami Zayn had that same exact experience, in a different point of view, different storyline heading into Elimination Chamber in Canada last year. So, you kind of just see that, that year bounce. Every year has that opportunity to really highlight and showcase. Now, Sami didn't win Elimination Chamber last year. That his match, he ended up having his success at WrestleMania, but Rhea ends up having her success in her hometown in front of her friends and her families. So I thought that was pretty awesome to see. So our number one, we'll talk a lot about the WWE. We'll talk about Elimination Chamber. Hey, listen, we're only 40 days until WrestleMania 40. We only got 4 matches confirmed. In this hour, we're going to kind of play prediction. We're going to kind of dig into my mind at how I would put together WrestleMania with what the storylines are set in front of me right now, because we're counting down the days to WrestleMania, 40 days away. So we'll talk about that in our number one. Our number two, I want to have an open discussion about just how good Andy Reid is. He's been Super Bowl champs with, 2 different teams across 2 different conferences. He's on the success reign. He's going to come back and coach next year. When you start comparing him against some great head coaches in the past, where does he lie on that table? Cincinnati Reds also began their spring training. So we'll talk about the Reds and what they have going for them as well. And so we're kicking off the Monday on the right note. The football, the basketball as well. You catch a Kentucky Wildcats game over the weekend. So a lot to look forward to. So hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Don't forget to have those notifications on. Be sure to check out our website at www.tncsportstalkshow.com, where you can catch all the podcast videos, blogs, schedules, and whatnot. So we're going to take a quick time out. Come on back as the throwing continues here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, we are on the final stop, or we just surpassed the final stop on the road to WrestleMania. And before we talk about Elimination Chamber, I'd like to give a big shout out to our friends from StreamYard. StreamYard Studios is the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel, where you could create podcast videos, host virtual business meetings, and conduct interviews. Check out their free version today at StreamYard.com. Been the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel since day one. Highly recommend it to other people who are looking to start their own sports talk show, podcast, whatever, or is looking for better options here. So, we're counting down the road to WrestleMania. We had, we are 40 days away. And we can tell now through the Royal Rumble, which was back in January, and Elimination Chamber, which is just happened a couple days ago. We got 4 matches now confirmed. And, we had I want to say it was a successful Elimination Chamber event in a different country. And we talk about some of the, we talk about the success of what the show brought. Well, we have to include that the Judgment Day had success all throughout the night. You saw Damian Priest and Finn Balor retain their tag team titles. Back at the beginning of the month, we saw them successfully retain their titles against DIY, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. That was on a regular Raw. That was actually the Monday Night Raw after the Royal Rumble. Well, then now you have the New Catch Republic, who Pete Dunne, Tyler Bate just recently reformed earlier this year. There are a bunch of cruiserweights that's been tag team, partners in the years past, back on NXT UK, all that fun stuff. They've been having they have been having some nice battles against DIY. They brought a different type of fighting technique strategy to their tag team match, in my opinion, against the Judgment Day on Saturday. I really enjoyed the match. I woke up to the point where Dominic Mysterio was getting ejected from ringside. And it went back and forth for quite a bit. And both, all 4 men were hitting their signatures left and right. And, it came down to Finn Balor. First of all, Finn Balor picking up the pin, which I thought was, phenomenal. I thought Finn Balor, it was key, because I know people think this other way, and it may be because I'm, let me face it, I haven't watched every second of every episode of WWE, but I haven't really been seeing Finn Balor as this big, as anyone special. He's supposed to be, he was the original guy who, he kicked out Edge and he became the leader of the Judgment Day. Then Rhea had success last year, so she asserted her power and dominance. And then Damian Priest became Money in the Bank winner, holds that contract over everyone else. And then Dominic became North American champion before Finn and Damian became tag team champions. So Finn Balor has kind of gotten the short end of the stick in this fraction, but they still, they are still one of the dominant fractions leading into WrestleMania. Then we talk about Rhea Ripley. Like I said, bittersweet. Being able to perform in your hometown in front of your friends and family, it's just like when, every time Rey Mysterio went to San Diego, it was packed because you wanted to see the Lucha Libre 619. The underdog, the David and Goliath scenario each and every time. And although he won some and lose some, I haven't necessarily ever been to Pachango Arena and watch Rey Mysterio win a match in San Diego, but it was notorious. And what's more sweet about Rhea winning in her hometown? This is in a different country, and how often does WWE go out to Australia? And maybe they need to make a statement and doing that more. But it was a nice night for the Judgment Day. We talked about elimination matches. Like I said, now we'll see Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch go one-on-one, and we talked about that earlier. We saw we talked about that prior to the Rumble, because Becky Lynch was one of those candidates that was favored to win the Royal Rumble back at a couple weeks ago. And and I'm not trying to sit here and prove a point and say, ha, I told you so, I was right, you guys were wrong. No, there were some valid reasons why Becky should have won the Royal Rumble match. I felt that if you're gonna see Becky and Rhea at Mania, they didn't need. There was other opportunities, right? I don't feel like a Royal Rumble win would have elevated much more than what it is now, Rhea's and Becky's feud, right? So I'm sitting here, and so I'm like, Bayley, and I saw this perfectly clear and laying out in front of me back in January, where Damage Control is kind of pushing Bayley off to the side as an outcast. And I'm just like, why does that not make sense? So Bayley wins the Royal Rumble match like I thought she would. So how do you get Becky to go to WrestleMania to face Rhea? And that is, in my opinion, that was winning the Elimination Chamber match. Now it fits perfectly. There's not much more you need to do. Cut a couple of promos, maybe do a run-in or two, and there you go. It's already well said. People want to watch it. It's already sold. We got over to Seth Rollins, and one of the biggest things about Seth Rollins was, where is he at recovery-wise? When he, said that he tore his MRI and he was going to be questionable for WrestleMania. We'll jump into it here in a moment, but he announced on the Grayson Waller Effect that he's on the verge of being cleared. And I think that's a huge statement. Now, I mean, realistically, how is he going to be 100% by Mania? I don't think so. But, he's just getting, they have utilized him as fair as possible. Keep him outside the ring, keep him inactive. And he's been able, to recover the best he can. And so whatever the storyline says for Seth Rollins and now Drew McIntyre, who's won it, and like I mentioned to you in the men's Elimination Chamber match, there was only a handful of guys who could have won the match, in my opinion. And I talked about this last week. Drew just fits the bill more. I feel like Drew fit the bill more in storylines moving forward. And so I look at the way that, that storyline likes I for favorite. I'm sorry. I think I'm hearing my son in the background. It's late at night. And so I liked how this happens. And we're going to get into the other segment because there are, there's other things going along into this. Now we're getting into the Grayson Waller Effect, for me, that was probably the most excitement that I had for the show, because I was waiting to see what took place with Cody and Seth Rollins. Ever since the WrestleMania kickoff a couple weeks ago, prior to the Super Bowl, where we saw this encounter between the Bloodline and The Rock and Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins had been telling Cody that, hey, I got your back, I got your side. Or Cody Rhodes been, Seth Rollins been telling Cody Rhodes, and if you need somebody, I'm with you. I'm the same way. And we get into the Grayson Waller Effect, and I don't know, are we disappointed? Because the beginning of the year we were seeing advertisements of Dwayne Johnson appearing at Elimination Chamber, and we didn't see it. So are we upset about that? I think what was really interesting, and on a side note that I took away from this Grayson Waller Effect, is the concept that Austin Theory, we knew Grayson Waller, he's a heel, but he's going into his hometown, or his home city, hometown, home country, as the face. Everyone loves him. That's how it happens. But you still have to have a heel guy. So they threw Austin Theory out there. And Seth Rollins, he goes out, he makes his announcement. Cody Rhodes makes his announcement. We'll touch base with that in a second. But then we see Austin Theory kind of interject, which then causes Austin Theory to be the target from both Seth Rollins, who delivers a curve stomp, and Cody Rhodes. Grayson Waller just looks on, and he knows, listen, I'm too much beloved here that I just can't get involved. So I just thought that was neat to point out. But Cody Rhodes makes this announcement saying, listen, you laid hands on me. Now I want to fight you. So he sets an open challenge to The Rock, anytime, anywhere. And now we're waiting to hear back, which The Rock will be on SmackDown this weekend, where, if we're going to see a Rock and Cody at some point. And I think that's warranted. I think people will love to see that. And I would love to see something maybe elaborate off of a WrestleMania possible match. No? Maybe if not at this early on, because I don't know the physical condition that Dwayne Johnson is in right now. Maybe SummerSlam, maybe Survivor Series. Maybe it's for this, the championship, if Cody could win. But I don't know. I think I was looking from previous advertisements, I was looking towards The Rock attendance. He wasn't there. So I was a bit disappointed. I felt like the segment was a bit off because it was Seth Rollins making an announcement followed by Cody Rhodes. It was one trying to outdo the other. And overall, I still thought it was a good show. The final stop into WrestleMania, we have, 12 more shows. I was looking at this a moment ago. We have 12 more shows. Now, that's minus the Raw before, the SmackDown before Mania, because and then obviously tonight, I don't know what's concluded. I haven't watched it. So 10 more shows that we have until WrestleMania. All right, let's take a quick break. We come back. I want to explore my options to you guys and what I think we have heading into WrestleMania as far as match-wise goes. You guys are listening to The Throne on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, so we're counting down the days to WrestleMania 40. As I mentioned before the break, we are 40 days away, 12 episodes away. And like I said, if you do not count the night before WrestleMania, which is going to be the Hall of Fame ceremony, and they're not going to use a lot of their talent that's going to be involved into WrestleMania that weekend, part of their show. I feel like they try to keep everyone fresh. A lot of it's storytelling. And so if you don't encounter that, I don't know what has taken place on SmackDown. I watched the opening part to Monday Night Raw tonight, excuse me. So I don't quite have, we're counting down now. We only have 10 days away from WrestleMania 40. And from my understanding, there are 4 matches so far confirmed. We got the Women's WWE Championship, Bayley taking on Io Sky. We have Cody Rhodes taking on Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. We have Becky and Rhea Ripley for the Women's World Championship. And now we have Drew and Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship. So we have 4 matches. Cody Rhodes has issued an open challenge to The Rock. When and where, we are uncertain. But now I think those draw conversations of, could we still see The Rock at Mania? A month ago, we were talking about the option of Roman Reigns competing 2 nights. Well, now it's like, well, maybe Cody Rhodes, in order to finally get to Roman Reigns at Mania, he has to go through The Rock. Maybe he's your final and ultimate test. That if you could beat The Rock, you earn another title opportunity. And so could we see that at Mania? I think, and I don't know the upcoming schedule for the WWE. I know last couple of years they've had this kind of house show that's been pretty big, like a pay-per-view type caliber, but it's not aired to the public. And it's been taking place at Madison Square Garden. So I don't know if they're having that again this year, but that would be another place. But if they are, and I just figure, I was like, all right, well, why would The Rock have his debut? Like, every match that you see of Dwayne Johnson has to be on TV, in my opinion. So it just doesn't make sense to see that. So there is a slight possible chance that we could be seeing Cody Rhodes go through 2 nights of Mania in order to officially overcome and finish that story. Or like I said, this could be another time down the road this year. But the challenge has been set. But what other matches that we have 10 episodes left that you can see WWE booking matches? And there's I was talking to my brother earlier this weekend about it. I'm like, listen, you got Bobby Lashley and the Street Profits, possibly with Karrion Kross and AOP at Mania, a 6-man tag match. You got, now it looks like LA Knight taking on AJ Styles. Let's not forget, you still have to find matches for you still have the Intercontinental Championship match, you still have the United States Championship match, you still have the Undisputed Tag Team match that has to be booked. You still have maybe the Women's Tag Team match has to be booked. And so, that's a solid 4 titles that has yet to be booked for Mania. And then I just named you 2 matches non-Mania now. Sami Zayn was being talked about facing Drew McIntyre, but since Drew's facing Seth, that's out of the question. Where does Bianca Belair go? We haven't seen Jade Cargill. Is she ready for Mania? I'm just thinking. Nia Jax lost at Elimination Chamber. What is she doing at Mania this year? Randy Orton, what is he doing at Mania this year? I know there's rumors and thoughts that he's maybe facing Logan Paul, which then for me, that's I mean, I have there's been two rumors speculating about the potential match for Randy Orton at Mania. Now, one is Logan Paul, which, I mean, Logan's face, I don't get it. I don't think it's needed. I'd rather see a Kevin Owens and Logan Paul again. But then another one is Randy Orton and John Cena. Both guys are limited in time in the ring, and maybe one last time, who's the better of the generation? But you see, there's so many matches. I know there's 2 nights, and we got 4 matches booked up. How are you going to fit? I don't know if WWE has that answer. And I would like them to kind of put that together quickly, because I don't want them just to throw matches together and say, here you go. I understand people get hurt throughout the year. It happens. Injuries occur. It's a physical sport. But I don't feel that, there should have been a plan B, a plan C, a D, all the way down to Z. And for some of these guys, I question if they had plans for them at Mania. Maybe they only had plan A, and since plan A didn't work and they got to move it up one, they didn't have a plan. Because now you guys got like, there's guys out there like Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Shinsuke Nakamura, Bianca Belair, that don't necessarily have matches for Mania. And not only that, they're not really even close to a storyline that's low-key representative. I heard, LWO could have a match at Mania. I've seen them more of NXT, so I can see that more happening in NXT lately. But, I mean, and Rey Mysterio is supposed to be coming back, supposedly. And I don't know. I don't know the details. But the point is that we're 10 episodes away from Mania. Logistic episodes. You got 2 nights to fill. You got 4 matches. That's confirmed. You got 4 to 5 more title matches yet to be confirmed. And you are creeping down the days. You've already feel that people have expressed their feelings and frustration for not having a storyline heading into Mania. I was watching the opening, match to Raw. It was Shinsuke versus Seth. And this was a retribution match for a couple weeks ago where, Shinsuke beat Sami Zayn, because of Drew McIntyre outside interference or distraction. Michael Cole and Pat McAfee kept on relating that every match from this point on is necessary. And they made a valid point tonight. Michael Cole said, well, this was a guy who main evented Elimination Chamber, main evented night 1 of WrestleMania last year. And he doesn't, the original rumor was going to be Drew versus Sami. Well, things changed. So now, where does Sami Zayn lie on that radar? That makes logical sense to put him in a storyline. And if, I don't see it. I just frankly do not see it. You go look at Kevin Owens, who main evented night 1 of WrestleMania. He also main evented the Royal Rumble last year. And, where is his ticket to WrestleMania? These are guys that busted their balls throughout the entire year that are finding themselves without matches or storylines leading to WrestleMania. And I think Kevin has more logical. Okay, let me go back after Logan Paul. And I understand, listen, you got new guys coming up, stories changing all the time, but they've definitely earned their shot. They definitely earned to be on that card. And I do like the mystiqueness. I do like the not knowing about, to a certain degree, about this. But I feel that by now, 6 weeks out, you guys, that you should have a little bit of a, glimpse at what you're planning on seeing at Mania. When it came down to Dominic and Rey last year, it was something that they toured along for 3 months, telling us that we were not going to see this match at Mania. Rey will refuse to face his own son until he pushed his father to the limit, forcing him to say yes. So this goes back to where, you at least had that segment, or you had that story pushing through, leading up to WrestleMania. And so, like I said, a lot of these guys don't have even that going on. They're not sitting there saying, "Oh, maybe I have a foot in the door, maybe I don't. Let's just wait a little longer." It's interesting to see how everything's do fold out, because Gunther doesn't have a match. And the last thing I heard was Jey Uso was challenged Gunther, but then Jimmy cost him the match. So now we're kind of up in the limbo of, are we seeing Gunther and Jey for the Intercontinental title at Mania, or we go back to the story that was in the conversation to lead off the Men's Royal Rumble this year? We could see Jimmy and Jey at WrestleMania. Does Solo Sikoa this time? Has he earned himself a WrestleMania match? There's a lot of questions than answers right now. And like I said, there's a certain level where I'm excited. I'm okay with it. But then there's, I think, more concern, like I said, leading in. I don't want, I mentioned this, I don't want matches to just be thrown together the last second because there was a distraction. I feel like if you're going to start throwing matches together, a couple of things are happening. I think the main reason is that you're distracted with The Rock and everything's happening with Cody, Roman, and The Rock. And yeah, I understand. It is the number one storyline of this year's WrestleMania. But on the contrary, everything needs to be panned out. And I just don't quite see it. So what are your matches for WrestleMania? Who else can you see? What else can you see happen? I would like to see Jimmy J. What's unfortunate is that Braun Breaker signed with SmackDown, I believe. So I was going to throw out to see Gunther and Braun, because if you were going to take the title off of Gunther, anyone right now that qualifies that can actually stand up to Gunther and physicality and has to be Braun Breaker, in my opinion. He's had a lot of success in NXT. I feel like he's ready to make the main roster. And I know maybe it's much to put a title on him right away, but they did that with him in NXT. They brought him in, he won the title, and he developed as a champion, in NXT. So I feel like that works. But, I think, I talked about that 6-man tag match. I mean, there's really not a huge women's division. So, you got to find out. I think, you can always see Bianca and Jade. I see them more so as a one-on-one, bringing the best out of each other. I think that would be an instant classic. I think, though, that match would take away from a Becky and Rhea, or whoever's woman title match is on the line that night, because they'd made a main event themselves. If I'm looking at this, I'm also thinking, who's going to face the Judgment Day and how that's going to work out. I honestly also think that some point this year you may consider splitting up those titles or recreating a new title as you establish more of the tag team division back on SmackDown. But I don't know, it's the WWE. Anything could happen. And I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. All right, let's take a timeout back into hour number one. When we come back to hour number, we'll be updated on all things Cincinnati sports related, as the Reds began spring training this past weekend. So we'll get to talk about some Reds baseball officially underway. Also got, Bengals officially signed that franchise tag to T. Higgins. Now they're in that comfortable stage, and we officially know where they're moving at here in 2024. We'll give you updates on trades and the start of Shohei Ohtani's debut as a Dodgers. We'll tap it off with some conversation about Oakland A's moving to Las Vegas. All right, don't go nowhere. Hour number 2 is coming up here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right, let's welcome back to hour number 2 of the program. Before we begin, we want to give a big shout out to Spreaker, the audio platform for iHeart from the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. From iHeartRadio to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Upload and distribute all your podcast needs through Spreaker. Be able to view analytics and monetize your show. Check out the descriptions by heading on over to Spreaker.com. You know, I was I didn't get a chance to catch a lot of college basketball over the weekend, and I'm aware that the season is starting to wind down. You got the championships here in just about 2 weeks from now, and then you got the you also got the March Madness and the brackets and all that stuff. So a lot of stuff still has to be done here ahead, in the next few weeks. But and plus I was watching wrestling, and spring training for me took takes the turn. Baseball season's here, you guys. And the weather out here also dictates that, hey, baseball season is here. Let's talk about it. And it's like the one thing that I hope I don't do this year is exert my energy early on in the season about baseball to where I kind of start lacking through the midst and towards the end of the season. Because if I start lacking towards the middle of the season, it becomes a bit harder to catch up at the end of the season and get back into it. But it's important to get back into it because it's playoffs and all that stuff. But it's an exciting time because, I think if you're a Reds fan, there's a lot looking forward to heading into or at the end of last year and how close we came for what little we had to offer. And this still is such a young ball club that is still learning and growing. So there's a lot of optimism about what type of success they can have that, we want to see them compete. We want to see them contend. And I feel like at this moment, they got nothing to lose. They haven't really made a name for themselves. A few people are under, contract negotiations, but otherwise, you're going out there and you're playing lights out. If you don't succeed, you don't succeed. I think there's a limitation to that. But we'll talk about Red spring training here in a moment. But a top story for me out of the weekend had to be the number 17 Kentucky outscoring number 13 Alabama 117-95 back on Saturday at home at the Rupp Arena. Like, oh my god, this is an NBA game. And you don't really quite see a whole lot of the triple digits out of this game. And I know Kentucky, I follow a little bit of Kentucky's season this year. And I noticed that they have not really had a lot. It's kind of been a rocky road this season because they haven't had a whole lot of, their full-on squad there. Kentucky, though, sets a record for the most points scored in a single outing against the Crimson Tides. Also, they set a school record for the most points against a ranked opponent. A lot of key helps, man, and it's great. You're winding down to the end of the season. I think Kentucky knows that, listen, this is all prep work. Let's get ready for the tournament. You're 19-8, you're 9-5 in the SEC. And I'm sorry to say this, but if you're a team, any team, I don't care who you are, and you're coming up on 20 win seasons, in college, from basketball, even to baseball, I think that's a successful season, no matter where you finish or how you finish. There's such a standard that you got to be number one everywhere, and I get that. But I still consider you're a successful program if you go out there and have a 20 game win season. Thanks, yes, this Saturday's past win was thanks to freshman Justin Edwards, who finished with a career high 28 points on a perfect 10 for 10 from the floor. It can't get much better than that, right? So, really highlighted notable game for Kentucky here this weekend. Other local sports news in the area, we talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals in the next segment here, but the men's basketball for the Bearcats, they ended up falling short again, this time to TCU back on Saturday. They moved to 16-11, 5-9 in conference play with the 2-game losing streak. They continue on the road as they play tomorrow, tip off at 7 p.m. against your number one ranked seeded Houston. On the road, they're 4-5. And the game will be aired on ESPN2, or you can listen to it on 700 WLW. Bearcats baseball, they headed over to the weekend for a little tournament action on Saturday. They had a doubleheader. First game, they won 6-5 against Ball State, and then they beat up Illinois 10-3. But Saturday, putting up a combination of 16 points, all they can mustered in. Sunday's game was a bit different as they fell short 25-2 against Coastal Carolina. The next game is tomorrow against Xavier Musketeers. One of the 2 times we'll meet the Musketeers this season. First pitch expected to be at 2:10. Now, I know there's supposed to be isolated showers throughout the day, some thunderstorms possibly heading into the evening. So I don't know how much of the game will actually get played. I'm actually interested because I was actually wanting to go to the game, but then I noticed in April they'll have the Joe Nuxhall Classic at the Bearcats field. So I'll be looking to head over there to watch that game. I'm still trying to get out to a Bearcats game this season. I know heading into this weekend, I believe they faced Northern Illinois in a doubleheader on Friday. I'm still trying to see if I could head out there. But only, man, time will tell. All right, Cincinnati baseball, man, it's enjoyable. Cactus League action at Goodyear Ballpark. I want to head out. I have not been out to a spring training facility or a game. I would like to do that at some point in my life. I think that is a goal to attend down the road. But Cincinnati Reds kicked things off on Saturday. They shut out the Cleveland Guardians 4-0. On Sunday, they had a split squad. Oh no, they don't. I'm misreading. The Angels had a split squad as the Reds picked up their second win, 9-4. And today, the Cincinnati Reds had a split squad. The first game was at home, where they got shut out by the Mariners 2-0. And then they beat up the Milwaukee Brewers 8-3. And I guess, we're kind of excited about that, even if it's in spring training, right? But, so far so good. They'll enter in tomorrow's game back on the road, though, in Arizona against the Chicago Cubs. They will have the 3-1 Reds will have Frankie Montas, the offseason signee from the New York Yankees, will take on the 2-2 Cubs as the Cubs send Kyle Hendricks out to the mound. That game is expected to begin at 3:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know you guys can listen to all the games either on WLW or WSAI. So I would check the listening stations. I actually saved it to my phone. I haven't. Let me see if I could maybe pull it up for a quick second. I could confirm it with you guys. I've saved it because it's important, right? You got to catch every baseball game. All right, so February 27th, you got the Cubs, 2:35 airtime. Game time is 3:05. WSA, I believe that's 1360 will be the game. Later on that evening, you have the Reds Hot Stove League, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., also on WSAI. They will be off February 28th, resume action against the Dodgers on February 29th, which will be a nighttime game. 2 back-to-back nighttime games at home at Goodyear Ballpark. So something to be excited to look out for. So, but they'll face the Cubs, another division league, a team who just ended up signing Cody Bellinger, who's was on that kind of seesaw contract status. He signed for a 3-year, $80 million deal. He has an opt-out option next year. These next 2 years, Bellinger has the option of making $30 million, man. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the program. When we talk about the Reds, man, I gotta say, I'm a bit frustrated with how many injuries have already circulated early on. And it seems like there are a lot of the same injuries from last season. We talk about like Matt McClain's oblique strain, which according to MRIs today, it's not a strain, which is good. It's just now, I was talking to my dad about this, and he had an old cliche that just went on about this. And this is what he said: I'd rather have it broken than sprained, because at least there's a timetable for a broken bone. When you sprain it, it could take anywhere from a week to 12 weeks, even if not even longer. And so with some of these injuries, you just kind of like, well, I'd rather be diagnosed with something. My father's kind of been going through a health issue the last several months. And it seems to me that the doctors just can't find anything, or can't find any on-term solutions. The problem is that he is failing tests left and right that they're giving him, but then everything comes back normal. So then it's like, well, what is it if it's something? Well, I don't know. Well, it's hard because you look to doctors as a profession and you're like, well, how do you just not know? Right. And so, and then I understand, listen, these doctors, I've come to learn more for patience with these doctors from time and time. And I still trust them, more than listen, they do things that I haven't been able to do, but it's just a frustrating factor because you're like, well, I'd rather have something there because then you know how to treat the issue than not knowing what the hell it is. When it comes down to the Reds having injuries, great. He's having oblique issues, pain, but it's not a strain. So what is it? And how long is that timetable looking at? And I know we're early on in the spring, training, but India seems to still have that plantitis, whatever foot that he has in his left foot. He's expected to return next week. Gilbart's dealing with the right forearm. Marte's dealing with the right hamstring. These are all, I guess, for me, concerns, because a lot of them are repeating injuries from last season that apparently never got resolved. And I'm like, well, we can't necessarily afford a Jonathan India or Matt McClain on a setback, can we? So it's mostly frustrating to me when I see this, because it's just like, man, these guys are what we're looking toward for these guys to perform this year. And the only way they're going to perform is if they're out there on the field. So, I hope they are a speedy recovery, but man, it's a frustrating time because, while we're dealing with the slow start with these injuries, and yeah, we're not letting it affect us on the way we put on the field, but it's like, we put a lot of faith into these young kids and we expect them to be out there. And when we go up against a team like the Dodgers in the regular season, we can't have missing people in the lineup. The good news is that Hunter Green has been working really hard. He's introduced 2 new pitchers, okay, as that he's debuted earlier this week. Over the weekend, he's introduced a curveball, which he felt he felt a little iffy on it, but I think the first time out there, I think you have to adjust to it. I think it's a repetition thing. But then he also threw pretty well, pretty comfortably, the split finger fastball. And this is what I like a lot about this, and just shows signs to Hunter Green. It shows a lot of characteristics. Is that I think it's fair to say that we're expecting Hunter Green to be this ace in the rotation that kind of is setting the examples to these younger guys. And he's actually taken the initiative. He's learning to better his repetition, and he's by learning new pitches that he could implement throughout the course of the season. And I applaud him for that. And I think it's time to find somebody, and if you look at this squad today, I can't just name one guy or even two guys, for a matter of fact, that is there to take charge, that this is their team, that they're going to lead it and guide it. And I think it's fair to say you have to have someone on the pitching standpoint and someone coming off the bench or in, everyday position. Joey Votto, great example last year. But when you look at, you don't really have anyone else. So to maybe look a little bit more as Hunter Green, this is your team. We got these guys for you to help back you up as you're the number one guy we're sending out there. We have the expectations on you, but we have the guys to help support you. That's great. Now it's trying to maybe pinpoint who is that guy on the bench or everyday play, because I don't think it's Jonathan India. I think Tyler Stevenson is focusing a lot on himself, which is fine by me. So, and I think Ellie De La Cruz has a lot to learn. Matt McClain has a lot to learn. Spencer Steer still has a lot to learn. So who's that veteran right now that you can look at, or that guy that's taking charge that can be like, okay, well, let's lead off of him. And I just don't know if we could find that answer yet. Let's take a break, come back, talk some Bengals football. You guys are listening to The Throw On here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.
now in the presence of a king. You are now in the presence of a you are now in the presence of a
Alrighty, welcome on back here.
king.
Just had my, people wake up in the middle of the night having to go use the bathroom and whatnot. But the Cincinnati Bengals, and we talked about this beforehand. I think this is good news. I talked about the importance of establishing the game plan for what we want to do this offseason and where are our focus points this offseason. And there's only so much you can do out of the draft, which, by the way, the combines here, and that's it's not my expertise. So don't expect me to sit here and try to talk to you guys like I know what I'm talking about when it comes down to the combine. But one of the big options that we needed, or the big elephant in the room we needed to address this offseason, was how were we going to approach T. Higgins, and if we were going to use a franchise tag. Now, using the franchise tag, let me remind you, ends up costing us some money, right? But it gives us another year. And I think utilizing that extra year so that we can head into this draft, maybe find ourselves a solid offensive lineman, maybe find ourselves another receiver or a defensive back, can hopefully give our odds into making it far. Now, everyone is out there throwing out the, when Joe Burrow's healthy, he's untouchable. To a point that, I accept that. I understand that. And I can rely on that a lot when he's healthy. But how is he going to stay healthy? We need a offensive line that can keep him from getting sacked 15 times a game. At the same time, we need receivers to be able to get open so that Burrow could get rid of the ball. We don't want Burrow to scramble each and every play and have to use his physicality to determine how that play is going to come about. Franchise tagging T. Higgins allows us, I think, points us in a clear direction. I think it gives us our safe haven. I felt like he didn't really have a choice because, right now Mike Evans is in conversation. I think Tampa Bay is working up a pretty sweet deal for him. And I think if things work well, he may still end up in Tampa playing for the Bucks. But he's also looking to, but I know I was, the wife and I went out to, it was Cheddar's the other day. Was it Cheddar's? I think it was. No, it was either that or Ford's Garage or one of them. They have sports on. They're talking about the possibility of what could Kansas City do to get a guy like Mike Evans. So I'm like, and to me, I'm like, well, if you're throwing Kansas City out there, who just got done winning back-to-back Super Bowls, like, well, we're out of the conversation. But so, I think they made a smart deal. I like the franchise tagging of T. Higgins. It keeps the 1-2 punch combination with Joe is pretty, solidaire. You got to look within, see who else you have, maybe someone coming up or someone from the draft, and then I think you could develop somebody. So I'm okay with what we saw. I think it was pretty expected, and going in from there, moving forward. Talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, though, because we look at all the players and what them getting paid, but I was reading this on CBS Sports, and it was about Andy Reid. Andy Reid's contract. Chiefs expect to make a 3-time Super Bowl champion, highest paid coach in the NFL, per report. And they're looking to work. They're working on a lucrative extension. When you go back-to-back Super Bowl wins, and I know, listen, normally coaches do not get into the conversations of having, of contract extensions. It's unheard of. But we already knew that he was returning after the Super Bowl win against the 49ers. And, this is history etched because, last head coach that won back-to-back Super Bowls was the Patriots and Bill Belichick. Now he has 3 Super Bowl champions as the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay. Just one of 5 coaches in league history to win 3 Super Bowl titles, which I think is crazy. He joins Bill Belichick and Chuck Noll as the only head coaches to win 3 Super Bowls in a 5-year season span. His 26 playoff wins trail only Bill Belichick's 31 for the most in NFL history. So he's 5 away from matching that. I think he could do that. He also joins Belichick as one of the coaches with 200-plus wins and 3 Super Bowl titles. His 558 regular season win trail only Don Shula with 328, George Halas 318, Belichick at 302 in NFL history. Reid's 284 combined wins in a regular season and postseason trail only Shula at 347 and 343 in Belichick. And Hodge is at 324 for the most in NFL history. So he's creeping up the numbers. So I just don't know how many more years he has left. Okay. He is the only head coach in the NFL history to win 100 games with 2 different franchises, and the only head coach to win 10 playoffs games with 2 different franchises. He's also has taken the Chiefs and the Eagles to 4 consecutive conference championship games, the only coach ever to accomplish that feat for 2 organizations. He's the all-time wins leader for the Chiefs and the Eagles. In 25 seasons as head coach, we're talking since early 2000, 99, I believe. Reid has won 3 Super Bowl titles, 5 conference championships, and 14 division titles. He's had a double-digit winning season. He has 18 double-digit winning seasons. He's fourth in the NFL history with 258 wins and second in postseason wins with 26. Reid has also won a playoff game with 4 different quarterbacks: Donovan McNabb, Jeff Garcia, Alex Smith, and Patrick Mahomes. Reed shows no signs of slowing down, nor wanting to retire. His passion for the game remains very strong, and he's in his mid-60s. Okay, so he's in his let's kind of break this down. He's in his mid-60s. He looks like he could do this for another decade at least. And with the right team behind him, and as long as the Chiefs GM puts together a solid squad, we're looking at a possibility that Reed can get through, maybe 73, 75, 76 years old. So another decade worth of coaching. So far, he's on the path that's surpassing all of these coaches. You think you could get another Super Bowl winner or two with Patrick Mahomes? You stand alone. You get about another 10, 4 to 6 playoff appearances. Maybe shoot for the wild card so you could pick up those wins and have the most wins. And then he goes down to probably becoming one of the greatest coaches of all time. And I know that's a very tough conversation. That's not very much of an open conversation. How many people really showcase and highlights the success of head coaches or any coaches of that matter of fact heading into the season or of all time? So, I think if you're looking at the Chiefs, I think Reed does deserve to get paid. I mean, look at Bruce Bochy, who went into retirement with the San Francisco Giants, came out of retirement, a couple years later, and instantly wins a World Series with a team that probably expected to finish 3rd or 4th in their division. And if you brought Bochy back and he could win you a World Series, I'm paying him a little bit more because he did something right. I think Andy Reid, and I give Andy Reid his list. I don't dislike Bill Belichick. Is it frustrating on some of the things that he's gone through over the last 20 plus years with the franchise? Yes. I think that he lost his edge. I think that he had an opportunity to re-shine with Mac Jones. Never worked out well. He's a defensive, he's a defensive guy, and he didn't have the right offensive power. And, you really showed that it wasn't, that you needed to build around a quarterback. But see, what Andy Reid has now and the team that he has now and the way that Kansas City is willing to spend money right now, they're just getting started. I mean, I don't want to promise that this Chiefs team is going to continue their dominance. I mean, this can end all tomorrow if something goes wrong. But my best bet is Perrin, Reed, and Mahomes and Kelsey all up against each other, up against anybody. For me, they still solidified winning this Super Bowl as being, the team to hate, nation's team to hate now. Fair to say, Patriots was once that team. Kansas City Chiefs are really close to being there. If they're not, they're already there. I don't bet against them. I can't bet against them. And I like the hate teams now. Like, let's hate the Chiefs. Wish the Bengals could be there at one point. Hate the Bengals. Hate Cincinnati for being so successful. Guess what? Burrow is still the only person that could beat Patrick Mahomes any day of the week. Let's take our last break of the program. And give you some what's going around the league, a couple of topics that are at the bottom of the hour as we wrap up a program. Don't go nowhere. The TNC Sports, the throw-in here continues on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, we want to go ahead and give a big shout out to Epidemic Sound. Discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com. You know, I didn't watch Raw tonight. Kind of want to get some time to kind of watch it, review it. Let's see what the progress is being made as we head to WrestleMania 40, which is the biggest story right now as we look forward. Something that I did see as they are promoting a lot. There's a flyer on Twitter, Greatness is Coming, where you have the bloodline, including Dwayne Johnson, the newest member, you know, all pointing, and it says sold out. It says get ready for Glendale on Friday on Fox. And the tweet goes, you can feel the uptick, excitement, energy, and disruption happening now in pro wrestling. it's super bleeping cool to see. Your city will never be the same again. This is coming from The Rock. Up next is Dallas, March 8th, and Memphis, March 9th, 15th. Hashtag SmackDown, hashtag finally, all the above. So it seems to me he's already been promoting that Dwayne Johnson will be appearing on the next 3 consecutive SmackDowns as we are on the road to WrestleMania. So T. Higgins is a Bengal. We do, and that's already gone and past us. What else is going on? Tony Kemp signs to the club's Reds organization, as well as first baseman Mike Ford signed to a minor league deal here. A couple additions, and I was looking into that. We're adding some additions. We talked about Josh Harrison recently signed a minor league deal with or got invited out to camp. With these injuries that are lurking right now in the Reds organization, India, McLean, it almost maybe, a lot of times you throw on these big names and half the time they'll sign with the minor league organization, half the time not. This is one of the scenarios where, it's more of a fan favorite, Josh Harrison wanting to play for Cincinnati. Hopefully he gets that opportunity. It's definitely in a different direction than what we see from, maybe keeping the door open for a Joey Votto. But with these injuries now starting to lurk, and we're starting to see some of the pictures of what we could be facing with throughout the course of the season, you can't help but question: is that do you sign or try to sign a Josh Harrison, knowing that guys like Marte or India or McLean, who's expected to be surrounding or infield this year, are out or dealing with injuries? Like I said, I thought it was quite absurd when you're sitting there and you're talking about a guy like, India out with his foot injury. And I was just like, what has he done all off season to get better? And you come in on spring training and you immediately, re-injure that, you're picked up right when you left off at. And I mean, I wonder, I question. I'm like, you're supposed to be ready. This is supposed to be a team ready. And so now you have the opportunity. Yeah, listen, I mean, Josh Harrison is not putting up batting a 340 batting average. It's not hitting 30 home runs in the season, but we may need his veteran expertise to come in here and to help these guys out, especially if they're dealing with injuries. So, I mean, why not? So, but, these Reds, man. Oh, man, already heartaches. Hopefully, and I'm staying optimistic this year. I really want to. Brandon Crawford signs with St. Louis to provide depth while Tommy Edman recovers from surgery. Last year, Crawford was the Giants' longtime Giants player, only by batting 194, 273 OPS, 314, not the greatest numbers. I want to point out this pet peeve, though, of mine, and I think this is going around all through Major League Baseball. So I want to talk more about Cody Bellinger's contract. He signs a 3-year, $80 million deal with the Chicago Cubs. That is $30 million this year, $30 million next year with an option for him, and a $20 million in 2026 if he doesn't opt out by then. Well, and this is, the big conversation right now as we're in the midst of spring with everything going on has to be talking about Scott Boras, the agent for a lot of these top guys like Snell, Montgomery, Bellinger was a recent one. And, it's just, I think it's fascinating that these players want to put a price tag so high. And I was listening to this the other day and it made complete sense. Well, you know what? who's going to, why would the Cubs bid on themselves if they're the only guy offering a contract to a player like Cody Bellinger? See, here's what's going on. The Cubs are interested in a player. They're going to call out the agent and say, hey, I'm interested in your guy. That agent is going to say, all right, well, based off of other compared contracts to what this guy is capable of doing, this is where we feel like this is what we're looking out to get in a prospect range. The club is going to go back and say, is this what we want to pay him? Is this what type of player we're trying to sign? What type of deal can we really afford? And then is there any other organizations out there? What has the Cubs learned is that no one else has offered Cody Bellinger a contract. So Cody Bellinger is asking for $150, $200 million on a 3, 5, 7-year deal, whatever that deal is. But the Cubs don't want that. They want a short-term deal at an affordable cost. And we already know a lot of these players are making, or, a lot of these players at the time are, on the free agent going 20, $15, $20 million. So you look at what the Cubs offering, $30 million. First of all, if anyone's offering me $30 million for the year, I'm taking it. I don't know who you are. I don't care who you are. Whatever you want me to do, as long as it's not inappropriate, I'm taking it. To play baseball. I know there's a lot of players out there right now that will love to play Major League Baseball would offer to take about $500,000. Now, no, they're not, Cody Bellinger status, but they're willing to do so. And this is going to get to my little top point here, is I think the free agent market has kind of hit a block wall between MLBPA, between players and teams. And I really want to go out there and show that I think the bar has been set ever since the Dodgers signed Shohei Ohtani. They put a price tag on Ohtani at $700 million. A two-way player that is unable to be compared to anyone else right now in modern day baseball. The last time I've ever heard Ohtani be compared to anybody was to Babe Ruth. And that was already stumped because by the time Babe Ruth was in his prime, he already was a one-way player. He chose to hit instead of pitch. Ohtani is in his prime and he's doing both. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And what the Dodgers have done is that they put a price tag on it. So if you're out there and you can excel, listen, Ohtani can excel at pitching and he can also excel at hitting. And so when you're out there, you're the guys like Juan Soto or like Cody Bellinger, or you're like, you're looking to get paid here in the next couple of years moving forward. Don't expect $700 million deals. It ain't happening. Because if you're asking me, and if I'm a ball club, I'm not offering anybody the next $700 million for any substantial amount of time unless they can pitch as well as hit just as good as Shohei Ohtani. But what this has created is now a price tag on a two-way player. What the Dodgers have done is that they are able to, do such a thing and still add on to their team. But I think that over the next decade, we're expected to see a little bit more of this take shape. We're going to hopefully see more two-way players coming over across seas. We're going to see the the pace, the game changing dramatically, and I'm just looking. Like I said, listen, $700 million is such a big deal, but I truly believe that Ohtani and the Dodgers at Shapeway. Talking about Shohei Ohtani, he went through surgery back in September. He's set for Dodgers spring training debut. Okay, tomorrow, matter of fact, where they play the White Sox. He will primarily expect to be the Dodgers DH throughout the course of this season. Probably won't play a single, ounce in the outfield. I was hoping maybe a little later on in the season he could do a little bit of fielding, but I think they're going to preserve him for pitching and DH. As the Dodgers are set to use Ohtani this year as full-time DH, he will begin his spring training play with the Dodgers this Tuesday against the White Sox. Dodgers end up trading Manuel Margot to Minnesota. Enrique Hernandez returns to LA for another year. So the Dodgers are looking pretty set. And with Ohtani in that, lineup every day of the week, I think he's a bit more optioned to provide some damage. One of the stories we haven't really quite covered here to wrap up our program is that the Oakland A's are moving to Las Vegas. It's already been done and deal set. I think it's been since last season, but everyone's not making it easy. The mayor of Oakland is like trying to convince, hey, this is already a done and deal set. We know in a couple years, Oakland is moving to Vegas, where I think there's some Vegas organizations that are not excited about this deal, about baseball being in Vegas. They already have a couple baseball teams in the minor leagues. It's also a contract that, I don't think it pays for itself. We know the repetition of the fan base for Oakland right now, not the greatest. They're not selling out. They're not even reaching revenue. To think that they can up and just move to a different state, thinking that, hey, Vegas, get behind the Red A's. I don't know if it's going to quite happen the way that they expect it to be. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But, I just learned, I was reading an article. I was like, Nevada State Education Association tries to block fundings. A's moves to Las Vegas. John Fisher has already received approval for $380 million in public funding. And that's not even topping off the cap to how much he's going to need to finish the stadium. So this is a big decision moving forward. I think that the, A's are struggling. The other part is where they're going to be playing for the next 3 seasons. Could you extend something with Oakland Stadium, or are you going to have to go play in the minor leagues? And that's going to be very interesting, very questionable on how they put this through. But I don't think nothing is going to be easy for the A's. I mean, not only having to deal with it from fan base, but they're dealing with it from associations and companies. And, I don't, like I said, I think it's up in the air on where does fans, or where does Oakland, where should they be playing at next season or in an upcoming season? I don't know. A lot of things going away. All right, that has wrapped up our 2-hour program. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button for more information. Be sure to check out our website at www.tncsportstalkshow.com. That is www.tncsportstalkshow.com. Until next time, be sure to follow that webpage so you can stay up to date with everything related to TNC Sports Talk. And until next time, you guys have a wonderful evening. Take care.